wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. I am your Sensie Owl Bob, here to tell you stories. I'm your griot, and don't believe a word I say. Everything is for entertainment's sake. Nothing is real. It's all fake news. So, what is the other? What? What is the other? Jesus said, and so as you treat the other, the lowest, so that you treat myself, right? The other is a person who is always in the wrong place at the wrong time. They're always the, you know, oh, it's so sorry they were caught in the middle of a gunfight, collateral damage. It's really, it's only 62,000, but it's no big deal. They're the other, right? All the animals, we have no more frogs left, no more birds left. Oh, they were the other. We don't really need them. Who needs them? The ice sheet in the North Pole is disappearing. The polar bears have no place to hunt, so to go into town and eat garbage. And they need lots of fat, so they need to go after those seals. But who needs, polar bears, right? But it's the world that you are living in, and things are happening so fast. Donnie, woo! Mr. Spin the Bottle, right? And how about that she and Donnie put on a flaccid penis parade in D.C. and it cost millions of dollars. Nobody came. It was raining. Everyone was bored, right? He brings in the National Guard into L.A. and hey, nobody wants it. And he's basically declaring martial law city by city, right? He's just waiting for somebody, Antifa. There was a great book by the police chief, who was the police chief at the time when Seattle had their big riots, right? And what they found that there were, people, these guys who were in tech wear, black everything, black military shoes, black, like hoodies, and where the police were going to be, someone had dropped about 50 pallets with bricks, right, just ready to throw. And that caused the gigantic riot, and it was only about 40 guys, right, that started the gigantic riot that, almost destroyed Seattle. And they, started it off and got everyone throwing, shooting rubber bullets and tear gas. And the boys from Palantir was there showing up their new crowd control technology. And it just got totally carried away. And those 40 guys in tech gear, they were there just for an hour. And then they were on their little dirt bikes and whoop, up into the hills they went, never to be seen again. Picked up by a vehicle and taken out of state. So that's where we're looking at, right? So, that $197 billion a year to go after the illegal aliens. I haven't seen one, rapist or, really bad dude. I've seen a lot of guys, weed whacking in front of the IHOP being taken away, people going dutifully to their court date for their hearing to want to become an American, and the judge hits the thing, goes, okay, you're dismissed. They go outside, get arrested, and put on an airplane and sent to El Salvador. Back in the day, this is what happened in Germany, 1932, Germany, Weimar Republic, most democratic country in Germany. And they basically, within 18 months, they burnt the Reichstag down, had the Enabling Act, and they were off to the races. And they went and made the Nuremberg laws that took away their constitution. And they basically took the handbook for Jim Crow. And that's what they used. And it was so up the hook, they couldn't use half the stuff that was in the Jim Crow handbook. So that's, what we have is a very small group of people who are really pissed off that they feel that their privileged life, right, was taken away and given to other people, the other. But those others worked really hard, harder than they did. They did, had like 10 strikes against them for where they came from and their gender and their color and their economics. And, Daddy worked in a factory, and Larry, he expected to go into a factory and do nothing and get a nice 50 grand a year. But those jobs went to Mexico. What happened? Well, it wasn't, Bill Clinton or Obama who did that. No, it was basically, back in the day of Harry S. Truman slash, Ike slash Jack Kennedy. That started all that and started moving because the unions had been so successful and the workers were making a living wage, and they basically were politically taking over the government. There were 5 different, it wasn't just Democrats, Republicans. There was the Workers' Party, there was the Wobblies, there was a Socialist, a Communist, the Black Party, and they all got congressmen in and senators and governors. And politics now was a thing where they had to work it out, make compromise, make government work, have democracy. Well, it's, unless you wake up and stop mouthing off about the other. That those darn others, we got to get rid of those guys. Oh, those rapists. And it's just mommy and daddy and the kids. And the kids are all American citizens, and mommy and daddy get thrown out. And where are the kids going to go? Well, they got to go back too. And in Germany, the majority of the Germans went along with it because they felt pissed off that they were like, no one was winning World War I, and then it was over. And then Versailles said, Germany, you lost, but they didn't. It was a secession, right? And so that secession lasted almost 20 years, and then World War II was just to continue World War I. And the Germans had their act together this time. I mean, they did their homework. They had weapons far superior. They didn't have the numbers, but they had the weapons. And, when they did those, going through every country in 20 seconds, everyone was on methamphetamine. So they just rolled right over the French and English that weren't prepared. Those guys had been partying for the last 20 years, and then this shit happened. And the thing about Adolf, he stopped. See, Adolf was just like Donald Trump. He was just a game show host. He was just a marionette. He was just had strings. He wasn't the brains, nothing, no. And what happened in World War II was the long game. It was the disruption that allowed the new order, right? The hegemony of the neocons for the next 70 years. And now here we are. We have more than the neoconservatives, we have the chuckleheads, right? Because the real bad shit ain't even here. Donnie is just breaking shit, right? He's just making things like, whoa. And so we should have, we're getting exactly what we got the first years of Donnie, with the cherry on top of January 6th, right? And that was the chucklehead thing. I mean, if those guys were true blue, they would have just whacked everyone and set the Capitol on fire, but they didn't. They walked through like tourists, not terrorists, tourists. And the media, I mean, you got to understand the media is owned. All this stuff is controlled. There is no good guys, bad guys, left, right, conservative, liberal. No, they're all 2 wings of the same bird. And then everybody else are what you call loyal opposition, and Scratchy, Scratchy is, that's Scratchy. I went to school with his brother, Joe Kennedy, right? And Joe is like a doorknob. I used to read books all the time, and why are you reading? I said, well, you kind of learn stuff. He said, well, I'm a Kennedy. I don't need to know anything. And pretty much, he's my roommate, Senator Kennedy, and his mom Ethel, who was the sweetest of the sweet. She was great, smart, all the above. And she just put up with all the crap. Marilyn giving the boys blowjobs, just anyway. Creation loves novelty. Oh, it's good to see you, Jamie. Finally, somebody knows how to put things in printed letters. He's not screaming. He is just talking so I can hear him. Right to end. Please what? Can you say name? Al Bob, Sensie Owl Bob. That's me. I got the name Owl, right? Whatever's on your birth certificate, that's your slave name. Yeah, I use it once in a while. But my real name is Sensie Owl Bob, the griot, right? And I got that when I was hanging with the Iroquois Nation in the 88, 89, 90, right? And I was driving Grandpa David, the elder of the Iroquois Nation, to Syracuse to negotiate because the Dutch, rented New York State. They weren't like the Spanish or the French or the English. I mean, they could be bad and basic. What the imperial might is the the first commandment: have no false gods. The false god of might makes right. That's European imperial power, right? That's the English, that's the French, right? And, they're, mercurial, and they stab everyone in the back, right? So come on, guys, more thumbs up. Come on. Forming a parole, right? Exactly. So what's going on now is you won't believe how bad it's going to get because you're going to see all that bad stuff they talk, about pedophilia, pizza parlors, right? You're going to see all those politicians come out on the street and do those nasty things right in front of your face. And so I could kill anyone and shoot them and I'd never go to jail. Because they make laws saying that they could do all of that. Like they had made laws saying that they can do insider trading. Now you're trying to get them to change that, because Mrs. Palazzi or Plodby or whatever her name is, the speaker, the ancient speaker, came from the tomb. Those girls, they were so in on the murder of Mayor, what's his name, and the gay photo guy, right? And in San Francisco in 1970 something, right? And that's when, there were these like really creme de la creme moments that you can say, ooh, look at that. Like, when Jack got whacked, that was because he was about to go and give a speech at the big house there where all the important people, the TV things were going to give this flag to the scientist who basically discovered, Tesla's works and put it into vehicle, mechanisms that would change the frigging world. And they already had that stuff. They had it back with Tesla. Back in the 1890s, they had free electricity. That's what Warden Cliffs was in Long Island, in Shoreham, Long Island, where 70 years later, or maybe 40 years later, somewhere between 40 and 70, these chuckleheads were, building a nuclear power plant, but they never even knew how to do it. They knew how to put a couple of wires together, but Lilko was building it and making it out of Lego blocks. And everyone who knew, I worked on nuclear power in Los Alamos, Sandias, Kirkland Air Force Base, all those kind of places, right? I worked on very exotic high voltage and high frequency transmitting amplified transformers, right? So, I was part of that club. And so when I saw these clowns doing this, I know I was an electrician, I had a license, and I was dealing with Wilco, and I said, these guys are the most incompetent chuckleheads ever, and they're building, it wasn't Babs and Wilcox, it wasn't GE, it wasn't Westinghouse, they were building it. It was like, what? And we're building it right on the foundation of Tesla's Warden Cliffs. I mean, physically, they took the bricks away from his laboratory and started building the building and put the reactor on top just to spit in his face. So it's good to see Jamie jumped in. Now, rise to the individuated soul's destiny. Yeah, I've had some really amazing, not amazing, very difficult, hard, because the last 2 nights I've had prophetic dreams where I was awake. It wasn't like, whoa, what was that dream? I was like taking notes, right? So it's hard to see that because what's going on in the Gaza is going to be going in your neighborhood. You live in New Jersey, it's going to be right down on the shore. Right in Newark. Newark already experienced it. I was teaching at Newark College of Engineer in 72 or 3, somewhere around there, when I had to, sometime when I had the riots. And I had about 4 years of riots. I just kept rioting. And that was interesting. And I was in Maine watching the Democratic Convention in Chicago in 68 with my sweetie. I was like 68. Was it 68? Yeah, it was 68. So it's about 18. And she was an Olympian, and her father was this great guy, and her mother was English. Her father was a B-17 pilot. Had every medal but the Medal of Honor. And he was the most lucky guy, most talented pilot. He always got his boys home. No one died in this airplane. They got shot up. They lost parts, but everyone got home. And, when he got there, they only had to fly 15 missions. Once he got it without a scratch, I said, "Oh, you're doing pretty good. You got to stay for 25. And it got worse and worse. And the closer they got to Germany, he did 48 missions, more than anybody. And he said if they did it again to him, he was going to, when he took off with a load of bombs, he was going to go bomb all of the landing crafts that were ready to go to France. So he says, I've done it, but we're having a big push. We need you. I said, no, if you put bombs in my airplane and you send me up, I'm going to bomb those. And they knew he would do it too. So they let him stay in the barracks. And his boys just said, thank you, Jesus. Right? So, now what's this one say? Love's novelty does that off mine. Like a grain of sand forming pearl. Yep. Novelty gives rise to the introverted soul's identity. No yo-yo soul's the same. Yep. But we are a collective. We are the we in me. We are love's co-creation. We are, and when humanity works together, it can do anything, right? And that's why we are the, what do you call it? We're the garage of God's soul. There's a term for that. I forgot what it was. They made a movie about it, with Indiana Jones. What's this? Ark of the Covenant. That's what we are. The Ark of the Covenant, right? We're not acting like that. We are serving. Remember the Cecil B. DeMille, the 10 Commandments, and Kirk or whatever his name was coming down with a 20, and he tripped, and then he only had 10, and then he got down there, and there was Edward G. Robinson making the false god out of gold. Well, that's what the Jews had. Why do the Jews have their services Friday night into the night? Because their god is the moon, which is a bull. And, who cares? Really, every religion is only one God, and that's God, right? I don't even like using that word, right? He's the unknowable one, right? But he talks to me all the time. Not like, hey, Al, how you doing? Let's have a beer. Well, kind of, but not really. I have dreams, and I sit out in front of the things, and, I said, well, okay, I have no idea what to do. Here's the wheel, you drive the car. I'll do what you say, right? So... And that's what I've done since I can remember, since the first time I really saw that, moment was when I was 2. Right? And then I really was conscious of everything from 2 when I was 4, when Aunt showed up in this little flying saucer when my mom was putting the laundry up that one spring thing, and it was snowing she had me in the laundry basket so I wouldn't, because every time I got away and did something, she usually ended up getting electrocuted. So she always kind of kept me under wraps, or gave me to Grandma just so I wouldn't even be there. So anyway, I'm waiting for the poop guy to suck the poop out of the ground, and it rained last night in the morning, and so I rake the road. The kids have been messing it up really bad. It only took me 15, 20 minutes to rake the road to perfection. And it was when you do it when it's wet and it sinks down and all the small rocks get between the big rocks, and it almost is like concrete. And if those chuckleheads don't ride on it until tomorrow, that road will be in great shape for at least 2 weeks, right? And so, but, my friend here, I came up and he says, "Oh, the poop guy's got to go. You got to get out of the way." Well, normally the poop guy goes around the other way, but that's neither here nor there. I said, "No, I just came to rake the road." And he said, "But your leg, it's sticking out." I said, "No, I just kind of adjusted, and I know where it is, and then I won't hurt it, and I'll be very careful, and it's kind of exercise, and so." And so I did it. So the road's great. The sun's hitting it right now. It's all sinking down. Like I said, if those kids don't zip up the road and tear it up again, it'll be great. All they have to do is ride on the side where it's like concrete, but they ride down the middle where it's soft and gushy and just they tear it up. It's not, I tell them, I show them, and go, huh? Now everyone said, each generation when I was young, "Oh, you're no good. What kind of music? Jimi Hendrix, what is that music?" Well, that was like, old slave black music. That's what that was. But anyway, 21 minutes and 21 seconds. I love it when it does that. So come on, Jamie's doing good. He's in Ireland, and so I know where he lives. I used to live in Ireland many times, and I really loved Ireland in the 60s and 70s, but when Ireland joined the EU, and when was it, Jamie? 88 or 84? I'm not quite sure. It's somewhere around there. Well, it was like a light switch. Everyone had money, everyone had land, but they lived traditionally. And everyone thought they were just, tinkers and gypsies. And no, they were Irish folk who were living like Irish folk, growing their food, not buying anything, saving their money. And then when the EU came and, this big corporation goes, "Hey, we'll give you 20 million euros for that piece of property." And the guy goes, "Yeah, sure." And then goes to Spain and buys a nice little castle for nothing because Spain hadn't hit the, was already part of the EU. Oh, I think the truck's coming. So I got to go. So, no, it's not the poop truck. Can you hear that? Oh, what morons. They're going downhill. All they got to do is roll. They don't have to put the gas pedal on. It's like, what is wrong with you guys? Anyway, so that's life. Come on, give me some more likes. Get people to subscribe. Let's get this party started because things are going to get loud. And as long as I keep having dreams. So I didn't tell you really. All I was talking about was the other. And so the other. Tonight when you go to sleep, have dreams about the other. Watch what happens to the other. See the people you know as the other and see what happens to them. And then you're the other. And what happens? And you could have changed and you could have been good and you could have been that child of God. But no. You have to bend the knee to the false god of violence and power rules. Well, talk to you later, kids.